I mean, until the son of Lorenzo became a pope, they were merchants, they were bankers, they were not religious in terms of their power structure. But elsewhere in Europe, in other cities, and even in Florence, much of the art was religious in nature. And it was the churches that would commission works of art. So particularly in Rome, Michelangelo, for example, who when he, like the others, fled Florence and settled in Rome after the Medici lost power in Florence, most, if not all, of Michelangelo's commissions came from the Pope. First Pope Julius II, and then Pope Leo X Medici. So, and other artists too, Raphael and others, I mean Bramante. So all of the major artists and architects were receiving their commissions and the patronage from the church. So what happens in Northern Europe after the Protestant Reformation is that one of the principles of the Reformation was that churches should not, instead of their lavish expenditure on art, on luxury, on non-utilitarian items, the church should spend its money on the poor, on the hungry, on the sick, for the people. So that kind of shift in the philosophy meant that now the artists received, and also the churches were no longer adorned, because the whole emphasis in the Protestant Reformation was on simple living, in the way that Jesus lived, simply, frugally. So no longer when churches now embellished with paintings and sculptures and magnificent architecture, they were simple buildings, they were unadorned. So then what happens to all the artists? They are out of work. Certainly in terms of patronage from the church. So now there needs to be, so in the immediate aftermath of the Protestant Reformation, times were bad for artists. But over time, over a couple of decades, things kind of, people adapted. And certainly what happens is that others step in as patrons of the arts. So in the northern countries of Europe, and today we will primarily be looking at Holland, Dutch painting. This is also the time, the 17th century especially, but beginning earlier, that because of the developments in science, navigation, exploration in terms of astronomy and understanding, travel through understanding stars, there is colonization. So the countries of Europe, Britain, France, Holland, Spain, are sending out exploration parties to find out how they can expand their power. So the discovery of the Americas is part of that. Christopher Columbus, who was financed by the King and Queen of Spain, and Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese, Amerigo. These were all, Portugal was also very much interested in that. So this is the time, because of the advance of science, that we have colonization of the Americas into the west of Europe, the North and South, Central and South America, as well as of Africa to the south of Europe, as well as of India and the East Indies, which are Indonesia, Malaysia, to the east of Europe. So now and the Dutch were particularly good, the Dutch and the Portuguese and the Spanish too, well actually all of them, but because they were surrounded by water. And also the Netherlands, you have the North Sea there, and the British also, Britain is an island, and they were always good sailors. So they took on this task of first exploring the world by water and then ultimately colonizing.